surprise had been so complete that she dipped into the Scotch decanter. She didn't know if the mill depicted in the painting was real, but there was a Cider Brook in Knightsbridge, barely 2 hours west of Boston. Of all places. A quick internet search had produced a year-old notice that the town of Knightsbridge was selling an old cider mill in its possession. Had someone bought it? Was it still for sale? Samantha had checked the closet for anything else her grandfather might have stuffed in there related to Cider Brook. Instead, she discovered a legal-size envelope containing about 50 yellowed handwritten pages, the rough draft of a story called The Adventures of Captain Faraday and Lady Elizabeth. She suspected, but had no way to prove, that the story was by the same hand as the painting. But it didn't matter. It had sealed the deal, and now she had Harry Bennett's antique silver flask tucked in her jacket and her plans made for her return to Knightsbridge, a town she had expected and hoped she would never have to visit again. Plans more or less made anyway. Samantha had no illusions about herself and knew she wasn't much on detailed planning. Her first visit to the little town had been 2.5 years ago, on a snowy March day a few months after her grandfather's death. She had expected to slip in and out of town without anyone's knowledge, but it hadn't worked out that way. A carpenter told me he saw a woman out here. You, Samantha? Yes, her. The carpenter had been her undoing. She didn't know who he was, but it didn't matter. She would be more careful on this trip, even if careful wasn't a Bennett trait. This was her chance to put things right. Samantha returned the painting to the closet, pulled the drapes, locked the doors, and met her uncle and cousin out front. They had collected her grandfather's 40-year-old Mercedes from its parking space behind the house. It was a staid gray and had Massachusetts plates, but it was destined to stand out in Knightsbridge. In some ways, Harry Bennett's frugal upbringing had never left him. While he'd bought an expensive car, he'd decided to keep it until he ran it into the ground. It would have helped if he'd driven it once in a while, but he never liked to drive. His younger son, however, loved to drive. Caleb Bennett was a rakishly handsome maritime historian in his early 50s. He and his wife, a rare book specialist, lived outside London and were the parents of 4, the eldest of whom, Isaac, a high school senior, was strapped into the seat behind Samantha. Isaac and his father were heading to Amherst, the first stop on a tour of New England colleges. Samantha, who didn't own a car, was hitching a ride with them. "This will be great," Caleb said as she got in next to him. "I can't remember the last time I drove into the New England countryside." "Are you sure you don't want me to drive?" "Nah. Sit back and enjoy yourself." The 3 youngest Bennetts would be arriving in Boston with their mother that evening for a week-long visit. At some point, Samantha's parents were due to arrive from the Scottish coast for an even shorter visit, a sort of family reunion. Her uncle and Isaac would pick her up in Knightsbridge on their way back to Boston. Caleb pulled out onto busy Beacon Street. It was late September, a great time to be in Boston, or anywhere in New England. He glanced at Samantha. "You look as if you're about to walk the plank." "Do I? I don't feel that way. I'm excited." "That bastard Duncan McCaffrey fired you, Sam. Going back to Knightsbridge just picked the scab off a wound that should be healed by now." Isaac leaned forward. "Duncan McCaffrey? The treasure hunter?" Samantha's throat tightened, but she tried not to let them see her tension. She and Isaac shared the Bennett golden-brown hair and dark eyes, but he was lanky, angular, and a gifted tennis player. She was active but had no patience for tennis, and at 5'5" she had obviously not inherited the Bennett height. Even her mother, Francesca, a marine archaeologist, was taller. Samantha considered herself lucky to have inherited her beautiful mother's high cheekbones and full mouth.